If you're an online coach, you run an online business and you're looking to scale, I'm going to break down exactly how I've made over 100K a month for the last 52 months. If you don't know who I am, my name is Charlie Johnson. We've worked with over 8,000 fitness clients in our fitness business, and now helped over 500 trainers scale, with over 12 hitting their first 100K month in the last 12 months. Now, to break this back, this is October 2020 is roughly when I hit my first 100K month, which was 52 months ago as of making this video, which is wild because there's 52 weeks in a year. And I thought it was an interesting context that this is so long ago that I had to put it into ChatGPT to figure out how many months it was. Now, to take some context back, probably the year prior to this, I was working with 210, 220 coaching clients. I was making maybe 50K a month. And what happened? I was stuck in the business because I had the big problem that everyone has, which is I had the golden handcuffs. I was making money, I was making good money, but I was doing fucking everything. I was making the content, I was coaching everyone, I was selling everyone, I was doing everything. And this is essentially where you end up with not a business, you end up with a highly paid job, and you create for yourself what I call the coaching prison, and you cannot get out of it. And one of the reasons I see so many people get stuck in this prison, including myself, is the fact of one, your ego, and two is that your arrogance, that A, I thought everyone had to be coached by me, and B, I wasn't willing to actually ask for help or get the second opinion of other people. Now, by and by, a couple of months later, maybe a year later, I then blew up my business because I completely realized one huge thing, which was if you leverage your time and leverage the money you make in the business to buy back your time, your money then increases in terms of how much you make. And essentially you take your time from the low value tasks to the high value tasks, which in a business, generally fulfillment and coaching is what you'd call a low value task. To give you some wild context, people say that fitness coaches get overpaid, underpaid, whatever. In our fitness business, we pay our coaches £40 per month per client. That's roughly what I recommend you pay your coaches. Some of the ludicrous advice I see given from other business professionals who teach fitness trainers how to make money is paying up from like £80 to £100 a month client, up to 50% of what the client pays. At that point, you basically work for the coach because you take on all the risk, you have all the costs, and you don't have as much of the upside. So one of the things you have to understand is you want to have this key metric in your business, which is an 80% profit margin on fulfillment. If you have that, you can then scale and you can be aggressive in growing to start to hit these types of figures. Now, one of the reasons I say this is important in terms of someone getting paid £40 per month per client is still good. The average doctor in the UK, when they first come out of medical school, they get paid around £16 an hour. So you can pay someone as an online coach who earns more than a doctor who has been to university for years and years and spent hundreds of thousands for education. Gives you some perspective. So you're not actually underpaying your team members, you're actually paying them correctly because you could technically pull in a doctor and they could actually probably coach them for cheaper than what you're probably paying your team right now. Gives you some context. But one of the things you also have to think about is the goal of this isn't revenue. The goal of this is to make as much profit from that total amount as possible, which comes down to keeping overheads down. Now, if we break down to how I built a multi-million-dollar fitness business from a literal shed in my garden in the UK, I had no heating, no air conditioning. I used to go down there at like 4:30 a.m. I'd fall over going down, it'd been fucking raining in my slippers, and I'd sit there with a heater between my legs with a woolly hat on because it's so cold in the winter. And the summer it was so hot my laptop would overheat. Gives you some context in terms of like slave labor working conditions. But the reality is, I look back on that and it's the good old times, it's quite funny. But three of the key things I had on my whiteboard in there were these. One was traffic, two was conversions, three was making the product better. And these are three things that I focused on to grow my business, which I'm gonna break down for you now. So number one is traffic. Now, if it comes to the quickest way to grow any type of business and to make any more money in anything is to essentially get more known. One of the most ludicrous pieces of advice I saw a mentor give recently, and I didn't comment on it because I don't like to start wars with people that I know I'm gonna win and it's unfair, is you don't want to go viral, you don't want to become famous. Well, if you look at actually the most famous people in the world, they can basically launch any product they want and make millions and billions from it. Like the Kardashians, you look at The Rock with the tequila thing he has, Conor McGregor with whiskey, like anything, right? Because they have huge amounts of traffic because they are very well known. So your job within your industry is you want to get traffic and you want your name to be associated with solving whatever problem. So if you help guys get shredded to go to Marbella, for example, you want to be known for that thing. That's what you specialize in. If you want to be known for example, one of our clients, JJ, is one of the best transformation coaches in the UK for body transformations. That's almost what he's synonymous with. One of our clients, Tara, who also does over 100K a month, is synonymous with helping people in the menopause niche. You want your name to be associated with that. And when it comes to getting traffic, there's two different ways you can get traffic. True primary ways. One is going to be organically via posting on social media, things like this, on YouTube, this is free, and on Instagram. These things cost you absolutely nothing other than your time. This is a Saturday morning at 9:30 and I'm filming this video right now. And the reality is most people say they don't have time. It's not that you don't have time, things are just not a priority for you. So if your business is a priority, one of the key things you have to focus on is what comes first, and that's traffic and eyeballs. Because very simply, I remember Grant Cardone saying this when I used to drive around in my Mercedes in Surrey. I used to listen to Grant Cardone and Gary Vaynerchuk. And Grant Cardone said, if people don't know you, they can't give you their money. I was like, wow, that's so obvious. So the more people who know you, the more potential customers you have. So essentially, you want to be blasting out content that gets eyeballs and views. Now, with the caveat of the right type of people. You becoming famous in India is not going to help you necessarily. But you getting famous within your niche of maybe helping guys who are 35 who want to get in shape and they're busy executives, it's going to make you a lot of money, right? So when it comes to traffic, you've got different platforms you can also come across. So throughout my journey of doing this and 100K for over 52 months in a row, one of the problems that happens is people put all of their eggs in one basket. And this happened to me and I got burned really, really badly. So January 6th, 2022, I ended up getting divorced from a 10-year relationship, had probably the most fucking awkward conversation of my life, which would probably give me PTSD to the day I die. Day after that, January 7th, I then gave away basically all my personal possessions, including my house. January 8th, I was sitting in the Hilton Hotel in Kingston because I'd been kicked out of my house and I was moving to Dubai. And I was about to speak on a big podcast and then my Instagram account got disabled. And at the time, the month before, we maybe did $220,000, which is double this, right? And that was probably 80% of our revenue. Now, that is the analogy of having all of your traffic and eggs in one basket. Now, I actually reframe that for you as a big lesson I also learned from a business perspective, is that things don't happen to you, they happen for you. Because one of the reasons I'm very good at the second form of getting traffic, which is paid advertising, is during that period, I was forced to learn how to run ads because my main golden goose that was laying had been fucking shot for 3 weeks. So that was a very stressful moment. And one thing I'd say to you throughout your entire career, you are gonna have consistent problems. And something to think about is like, if you wanna have a big life, you're gonna have big problems. It's just the reality the two things come together. So like, accept you're hard. And the reality with traffic is understand that you wanna use different platforms, and from Instagram, Facebook, one of the ones we crush on is LinkedIn. I recently put up a video on how to make 10K a month just on LinkedIn, which will walk through the whole process. So I'll go and check that out on YouTube as well. And then lastly would be YouTube. And the reason you use different platforms is because you don't have the risk of having your entire business like rug pulled from underneath you. The second thing I'd also do if you're using Instagram as the main conversion platform on social media, which I would recommend you do, is you also have more than one Instagram. So I probably have 6 different Instagram accounts at the moment. You don't need to go to that extent, but I would have one main account and then have a second business page, which is like transformations, loads and loads of social proof. Why this is also important when it comes into conversions is it means you can basically double your traffic, but you can also double the amount of outbound messages you're doing. So one thing we have to think about is how to get traffic and eyeballs, and this actually comes down to doing one other thing as well as using the right platforms, is actually staying ahead of the curve. So one of the reasons you might be struggling right now with your business is the fact you are trying to do outdated shit that you actually taught in 2020. Because what I was doing here doesn't work anymore. The type of content I make now is completely different in terms of the way it's filmed, it's edited, the hooks we use, the language we use, the way we trigger people, completely different. Because back then, you didn't have Reels. AI only came out like 18 months ago for like scripting stuff. Your ability to produce content en masse has never been easier than before, and to get more eyeballs than ever before. So something people moan about now is they were said, back then it was easier. Maybe technically yes, in some degrees yes. However, there's a couple of different things to think about. You have more tools at your disposal now than ever before. And when I come on to talk about this, you also have more information in terms of knowing what to execute and what mistakes not to make. Because when I was doing this, I had to carve a path that no one else had done before, and I had to figure out a lot of these big mistakes that I've made. So when we come from traffic, the second thing we have to think about is conversions. Now, I built out a sales team when we started doing maybe 50 to 60K a month, and I was doing maybe 25 to 30 sales calls a week. In my opinion, that's about the max until you start to lose your mind. And in retrospect, the pivotal point for me was, I remember someone booking a sales call and I was like, fuck my life, I do not want to take another sales call. And if you're in that position in your business, you need to make a change. And one of the things that forces you to make a change is pain. Now, if you are in a position right now and I said to you, you have to make an extra 10K next month, and I've got a gun to your mum's head, and if you don't do it, I'm going to shoot her, you're probably going to make the extra 10 grand somehow, right? You're just not in enough pain to make it happen. And one of the reasons I actually see a lot of the coaches we work with in Dubai do so well when it comes to building out sales teams, they are in pain. Because when you come here, one of the things you have to factor in is the time difference. It's a 3 to 4 hour time difference from the UK, which means you end up taking sales calls late. Personally, I don't want to do that, and a lot of the coaches don't want to be taking sales calls to 11, 12 p.m. Now, the reality with this, because you're in pain, it forces you to fix the problem. So try and actually put yourself in a position where you have so many calls that you do not want to do this anymore, and it will force you to then level up and then get to the next position. Now, with conversions, one of the big mistakes I made at the beginning was not charging enough. And when I first started my business, I had some really crap advice, which was to basically just do a low ticket offer from the start. It was an 8-week program that was £99. And I remember the first time I sold a £500 program, I felt like I'd fucking reinvented the wheel and found fire, because like, I can't believe someone actually paid that. And when I take back about the 8-week program that I actually sold, we used to sell a lot of people into this. We built one of the biggest 8-week programs in the world called Shred and 8. Now, we had a guy who came into that, he paid $100, £100 for the program. I eventually sold him a £9,000 coaching program, and he renewed for 3 years. So we made nearly 30 grand from one client instead of 100. And this is where what you actually want to focus on doing is, if we look at the up arrow again, is focus on the people who can pay you more. So what you actually want to do a lot of the time is age up your content. So you don't want to be targeting kids, you want to target people who actually have the money to pay you. And generally, the older people are, the more disposable income they have. So when it comes to conversions, the things you want to look at is the price, what do you charge, what's your closing rate, and what's your average cash collected per call. Now, one of the things that keeps a lot of coaches poor, particularly in the UK, is they love to do one thing. They love to sell coaching programs monthly. This is the quickest way not to scale. It's like the anti-scaling method of you hate money. Essentially, what you want to be doing is either selling 6 or 12-month programs, and I would suggest either doing a minimum of 2K for 6 months or 3K for a year as a start point. Why I like that pricing model, it makes there's 12 months very attractive, because the whole year, the second half, is then basically a 50% discount. And that comes down to what we want to call LTV, which is the lifetime value of a customer. The more you can increase that, the quicker this is then going to scale up in terms of conversions, and then the easier it is to get you to 100K a month. If you're selling $250 programs, it's going to take you a long time to get to here. But if you're selling 3 to 5K programs, you don't need that many signups to hit this point. And when it comes to price points then, the back end thing we have to look at is churn and retention. How many people do you keep on after they've signed up? So first thing we talk about is traffic. Now we talk about conversions, and the minimum sales closing percentage you want to look for, you want to be looking for a minimum to 50 to 60%. If you're over 60 to 70% in your sales conversions, you want to increase your price and charge more. Because even if you close at a lower rate, you will make more money and you will make more profit, because your fixed overheads in terms of delivery are going to be the same. And the third thing I had on my whiteboard when I was building my business in the shed was make the product better. How can you make your coaching service so good people do not want to leave? Stop the churn. How can you get better results? How can you get one client to refer 2 clients forever? How can you make more events so you get more word of mouth? How can you do more photo shoots so you've got more social proof to sell? This is the key thing you want to look at. And one of the big things I would do with this is actually speak to your customers. So a huge thing that can reduce your churn, which will make you loads of money if you implement this, is exit interviews. If someone wants to leave your program, ask them to jump on a 15, 20-minute call with you, get some feedback of why, and chances are you can probably try and keep them into the program. The second thing you want to think about making the product better to keep people on for a longer period of time is actual client community events and having human interaction. Because of AI in the world is going, human beings are going to want to be around other people who are like-minded more than ever. And if you can create a tribe effect around what you do, people will not want to leave. People will want to stay, and you want to incentivize them for that behavior. So if you incorporate this with what you do, you will get more referrals, which will pull through for traffic, you'll get more conversions, and the whole thing will then feed itself. And then the last thing I want to speak about, now we've gone through making the product better, is 400K. This is actually more than this, but this is how much I've spent in mentors, personal development, to get to the point now we are now. We've generated over $16 million online. Now, the reality with this is most people think, what will it cost? Not what will it cause? The reality is if you have a fear mindset, you will stay in the same position you are right now. And the reality is you have to think is like, what's the worst case scenario with anything? The worst case scenario for me is when I was an estate agent, if I left my job and it didn't work, I would just get another job as an estate agent. So worst case job for you is you're a PT and you try and go online, it doesn't work, you then just go back to being a PT. So you're just back to where you were anyway. So the real risk you have is not taking the risk in investing people to save you the time to get you to the next level where you want. And for me, you have to understand a very simple framework. You're going to pay either way. You pay in two ways. You either pay with time or you pay with money. One they print, one you will never get back. And this is where you want to be leveraging money as you make money to reinvest back into yourself, which is the most powerful asset you have. I spoke about earlier about how I'd gotten divorced and you lose certain things obviously in a divorce financially. The one thing no one can ever take from you is the knowledge and the skills you have. That is something you have straight away. And that's why after I built one 7-figure business, I built 7-figure scaling systems into a 7-figure business in less than 6 months. Because I'd already done it before and I knew exactly what to do. I knew what cards to play. I knew who to hire, what to hire. And this is also how we've helped over 14 coaches get over to 100K a month in the last 12 months alone, because I know the exact frameworks, the exact steps you need to implement, where you're going to get stuck and how to unlock the next period of growth. Because business is very simple. It's the same sequences over and over and over again. And when you learn the right information and you're not trying to do the same shit that people were doing from October 2020, your business will keep growing. But something I want to leave you with to think about is the half-life of information is getting shorter and shorter. So the period that things work is getting narrower, which means you have to constantly be learning and evolving, otherwise you will get left behind. And the people who do evolve are going to grow faster than ever before. And if you want to be one of those people, what I'd like to do is invite you to come and work with us and actually just have a free coaching call, a free audit of your business. I've done this for the last 52 months in a row. So there's no reason why we cannot get you to do this. We've helped over 14 other coaches do this as well. We've helped over 500 trainers scale their business. So if you would like an audit of your business, you want to see the secrets in terms of how to grow your business, hit the link below this video. You can book in a free call. We'll go through the whole thing. And if we think you're a good fit, we can talk about how we can potentially help you. If we don't feel you're a good fit, we'll just give you a load of resources that you can go and implement anyway. If you took value from the video, smash the like button, comment below any questions. Be interested to see how long it takes me to get to $1 million a month. That's the next goal. And then subscribe to the channel.